AI will not just improve workflows. Like I said, it also reshape how value is created within like businesses and how it's captured. I think AI would it will dramatically increase like the leverage of individuals who are able to who have domain expertise and who are able to use the tools effectively. So eventually, the AI-enabled businesses of the future, they will have a leaner team, they will have a smaller teams because you'll be able to do so much. So the experts who are able to allocate those intelligence, they'll be able to work together with those AI agents and they'll be able to accomplish so much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CSM Lounge. And one of the things we talk about on this channel is that new thing that we're all interested and talking about so much in the last few years, thanks to that company that has Sam Altman as the leader. It's AI. How AI is going to revolutionize our world, how AI is going to make us better at what we do. Or, according to some rich man, how AI is going to eliminate poverty. But we'll get into that conversation shortly. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Femi, and this is the CSM Migrant Lounge. Every month, we bring you real conversations through the CSM Migrant podcast, and we have deeper, broader tech discussions on the CSM Migrant Lounge, where we give out practical career growth, how-to content, security and privacy reviews, and also how technology makes our lives better. So if you care about technology, protecting your future, hit subscribe and check out the playlist and share this with someone who needs it. Now, let's get into this conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about AI. And I have somebody, actually, when I met him recently, and I found out that he was for want of a better word, he was a guru at AI. He makes AI look dumb. I was like, I have to come to talk to him about AI. My guest today is Adura Fayode. Adura, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here today. I'd like to start off by saying that there's no guru in AI.
True. AI I was in the conversation during the week, at work, and we're talking about Agentic AI, and I was doing a course recently also about AI security and all of that. And it's just amazing how far we've come in the last, say, 3-4 years with AI. I remember, I tell people that in security, because I work in cyber, we've been using AI and ML for a very long time. So it's not new to us. But a few years ago when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, for want of a better word, they democratized AI. And that's why AI is everywhere now. So everybody's racing to get into that. And that's why I wanted to actually come here today and have a conversation with you to get your insights on this. But before we get into all of that, tell us a bit about your story. Tell us a bit about Adura. Who is Adura? Let's meet you.
Again, my name is Adura, and I'm the founder of Aivant. And what we do is that we help businesses to implement generative AI into their workflows. I'm a Nigerian living in Canada. My company, Aivant, it came out from my own experience with generative AI during my MBA. So one thing I've observed is that when people do not have real tangible use of a new technology, they tend to underestimate the capabilities. Okay. But for me, the use cases were immediate because I was using generative AI tools in my assignments, on projects, and on thinking work, right? And then one of the moments that really struck a chord and really stayed with me was doing a marketing class. So we had a case that we had to work through. And I recall spending up to 10 to 14 hours working on the case. And I also had to check with a colleague. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I had to check with a colleague just to be confident in my results. Now, I had a colleague that deferred the course. So a year after, they reached out to me to use my paid chat GPT to get feedback for the case. Yeah, so so I uploaded the case and all the required context. And in just a few minutes, right, the AI produced a result that closely matched what took me almost a full day to get done in the previous year.
And you're like, why did I bother?
Yeah, exactly. So that was the first aha moment with generative AI. Wow, we have these capable tools in our hands. And then the second is so I'm not a trained developer, right? But I was able to use generative AI, I think in 2023, to build a plugin. So I built a Chrome extension that can refine your text directly in your browser, right? So then there's a modern AI agentic tool. So what I did was I created different, so now in multiple chat window. So I had a chart for the front end engineer, I had a chart for the UX engineer, for the UX, I have a chart for the back end engineer, and I have
so different personalities, exactly.
So we iterated, and piece by piece it works. Again, that was the second aha moment for me. And then I realized that the issue is not capability of the generative AI tools. The issue is adoption. And that was why I stepped forward to create Aivant, right, to help businesses to leverage generative AI from impressive tools into like building real workflows. Yeah, that's my journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting one. And I like what you said at the end, that adoption usually is a bit of a challenge. And I know that's a bit of a problem as well. I know some enterprises, no names, where they're actually tracking AI usage among, employees and staff. Now, it's a pretty large enterprise. They've got a lot of frameworks around AI. So there's a lot of guardrails around the AI they use, and they have multiple AI tools. So they've got Cloud Cowork, they've got no ChatGPT, they've got Gemini, they've got an in-house built solution as well. And one of the things is AI usage among employees is being tracked, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I was telling someone last week. This is 2026. I can't imagine for the life of me why you wouldn't use AI to make you work smarter and faster. I had an issue recently where I was doing some work and one of my servers, I have a scheduled job that threw an error. And I couldn't for the life of me understand why it was throwing an error. I was like, why is it throwing an error? So I looked at it, I couldn't tell what the issue was. All I did is I just took the error message and threw it into a generative AI tool. I was like, okay, I have this job, this is what this job does, but I'm not sure why this gives me this error. Can you tell what this? I was like, oh, this. And in less than 10 minutes, I had a solution. I went back and implemented the solution and it was solved. If I didn't have AI to help me do that today, it would have taken me much, much longer than it took me to solve that problem. So again, I don't understand why people will not adopt AI. But since you've started Aivant and your conversation with clients, customers, people, what have you noticed is the reason why AI adoption generally stalls, especially for enterprises?
Yeah, so from my experience, one of the reasons why I think AI adoption really stalls is because there's often a disconnect between the leadership and the workforce. Those who have decision-making authority and those who are able to deploy budgets, right? They use generative AI tools on the surface. So they use them for basic drafting, like quick questions and light productivity tasks. So they are not really pushing these models into the deeper workflow possibilities. So to them, from their perspective, generative AI to the upside is just minimum. And then in some of these enterprise companies, you have AI trailblazers, you have employees who are discovering new use cases, those who are tinkering with different AI tools, right? But they do not have budget. They are unable to influence the budget. When you have that disconnect, those who have the budget, they don't see the potentials, and those who are seeing the potentials, they don't have the budget. Definitely stalls. And on top of that, some businesses don't really set out a clear strategies. It's so they are not sure if it will be top-down driven, it will be bottom-up, it will be workflow by workflow. And then you have some businesses that are just outside, just looking in. They're undecided. So they are curious about generative AI that everyone is talking about, but then they're just sitting, they're not really participating. So, you have three classes. One is that the executive, they're kind of detached from the capabilities of generative AI. Second is that sometimes they've not properly defined strategies on how to adopt or how to drive adoption. And the third is that they know about these wonderful generative AI tools, but they are just being cautious and undecided. I think those are the reasons why we have AI adoption stalling. So,
and I would stay with that thought and say, okay, if that's what you've noticed, how can we fix it? What can we do to move forward?
Yeah, so basically, so it's okay to be cautious, right? For leaders who are cautious,
absolutely,
it's fine, but waiting passively is not. So the right thing is typically to be responsible, to do a responsible experimentation with oversight and governance. Define clear use cases, find a workflow, find a set of pilot users, and then define the success metrics, and then measure if the generative AI is making impact. So it's just making moves. That's why I believe that enterprises that they should be doing. Again, we typically talk about strategy theater where people are talking about AI, but then they have committees, they publish thought pieces, and they know that the tools seem to be very effective, but then they're not really embedding the tools into their workflow. So if they are doing that, they're going to be left behind. People have to start making moves, small pilots or small use case, and see if it's making impact or not.
Yeah, that's true. The last episode, I actually was also speaking with another founder who's also, again, leveraging the power of AI. And just on the tangent, I remember last year I did attend Web Summit and there was a lot of startups there. And by far, most of the startups there were leveraging AI to fulfill some business need. So again, I think AI is the future. I don't think AI is going to become Skynet and send us Terminators from the future, at least not anytime soon. But I think AI is the future, right? And I was talking to someone the last episode, and she was talking about how I think she uses AI in a smart way. She has a tool she's built that uses AI to keep you on track. So you know how we all like to set goals. Okay, I want to do, at the beginning of the year, we all say, I want to do this year. And then 6 months down the line, you've forgotten what you wanted to do because there's no accountability, there's no milestone to track. So she's using AI to sort of develop an accountability system, a way to track, a way to keep you grounded and focused so that you can actually hit those goals within that time frame, which I think is fantastic. So I think there's a lot of things we can actually do with AI that can actually make us better as a human race, right? You mentioned strategy theater back there just now. What does a real practical AI implementation look like if we're going to say, okay, yes, they're using AI the right way, not just, okay, we have AI, but we're not using it for anything. The only thing we use it for is to give us a picture of a lion wearing a jersey playing a football. I tell people, you have the computing power of generative AI, and what you can do is generate an image of a lion wearing a t-shirt and playing a football. I'm like, come on, it's so much more we can do with AI, right?
Yep, absolutely. In the course of my consulting, when I was doing code outreach to legal services, you could see that the firms, like they've been discussing about AI, so they've published articles. Some of them are even talking publicly about it. And I even had a prospect that said that they'll be forwarding my marketing material to the AI committee. So you can tell that this topic is already on the radar. But then awareness is not the same as adoption, right? So like
two different things.
Absolutely. So in many businesses, right, conversation about how to use generative AI is just talk at the level of policy, oversight, and an abstract strategy. So you're going to have a big issue if for every small practical pilot, you have to go through series of discussions. Now, I'm not saying that oversight and governance is not good. Yeah, definitely they are important, but then real AI implementation looks different. You have to start with a specific workflow. It could be a support, it could be in research, it could be in software engineering. Then find a group of small pilot users. Again, you have to define success metrics because then that's the only way you can tell if generative AI is useful or not. So you define success metrics for the particular workflow that you are piloting. So if you test the workflow and it's working effectively, that's when you now invest in building trust within your team. You make the workflow, usable, and then you invest in training. So it's just leadership having the buy-in. There are businesses that are tracking the usage of generative AI tools. So in that case, you don't have a choice. You have to use generative AI tools. Exactly. Yes. There's a bit of inertia from the employee or the workforce, but then there's buy-in from the leadership. Eventually, everyone will come along. So
as you're talking about buy-in from the leadership and people's fear or reluctance to use AI, I was thinking about something I saw 2 days ago about some leak or breach involving Anthropic. And I was like, could this be, I don't know if you saw that. Could this be why people are, reluctant to, what if I put my data in AI and AI then goes to leak my data to somebody else? Or if the bad guys get it through AI? And I've always told people, because you're afraid of bad guys using AI is not a reason to not use AI. Because you're actually doing yourself a disservice and put yourself at a disadvantage. Because if your attacker is using AI and you're not using AI to try and defend yourself, then you're not defending anything. You're as good as gone, right? So what's your take on that?
So for those who are concerned about data privacy and data leakage to to third party actors, there are open source models that are quite capable.
Exactly.
I spent time on Twitter. Typically, what you see, people typically say that open source models are just 3 to 6 months behind the closed source models. If you have aversion towards using the closed source models, right, you can make an investment into open source models. Then but you also have to be confident of the investment. So one of the reasons why we typically prefer using closed source models is because we just a $20 subscription, right? You can start taking advantage of generative AI tools. But now, if you are using an open source model, you have to start thinking of how to host the model. Then you need GPUs, right? You have to get GPUs, to run the models. So then you need inference engineering, optimization. There are definitely costs involved, right? So, but if that is the way that you want to go because of the aversion to data privacy or how the AI labs will handle your data, you can give it a shot. Yeah.
On a lighter mode, there's one other reason why people go for closed source rather than open source, so that you can have somebody to blame when something goes wrong. If it is open source, you can't blame anybody but yourself, right? But if it's closed source, I'm going to sue you for leaking my data or something. Anyway, and North America, they like to sue a lot.
Most of these top AI labs now, they are working with businesses that are in so-called privacy conscious industries.
Yeah,
You have
yeah,
different
yeah.
one like Avi, for example. So like they've built workflows for legal services. You have the top labs working with healthcare, with hospitals, with clinics. So you have top AI labs working with firms in finance. So yeah, so definitely it's just about again having the buy-in. So when you have the buy-in, you're going to find a way. Either you use a closed source model or use open source model. So
yeah, absolutely. I want to change tack a bit and talk about something that you mentioned, not on this conversation, but in our previous conversation before this recording.
yeah.
You said you have a framework. You call it the find the leak, ship the fix, make it stick. What exactly is that? How did you come about that? And what does it look like in action? Share with us.
Yeah, sure. So the way I think about AI implementation, we have a simple framework. Again, is find the leak, ship the fix, and then you make it stick. Finding the leak is about identifying, part of your workflow that is slow, that is manual, that is repetitive. Now,
Okay.
in most business functions, you need humans to make judgments, and we are not advocating for AI to replace the human judgment. But then around those judgments making, like those decisions, typically like series of repeatable steps. So take a customer support, for example, right? If a support agent has to make a decision on a refund request, sometimes it is straightforward because they have a documented, clear policy. Sometimes it's not, and in that case, you have to make a judgment call. But then when they are done making a judgment call, they have to execute a series of steps. For example, like to authenticate the account, pull out the information, document the case, right? They have to issue the credit and then draft a response. So that's manual, repeatable steps. That's where the opportunity lies. And then across all business functions, in finance, in operations, you have people still making judgment calls, people making decisions. But then they are typically spending time doing research. They do research, they'll synthesize the research, they'll document it, they will coordinate decision around like the research. So those are the leaks that you need to find. Now, when you find the leaks, you have to like ship the fix. And that means you've designed the workflow so that the AI will handle the repeatable work while you take ownership of judgment and the accountability. Now, when you are done shipping the fix, you have to make it stick, because this is where the return on investment really comes in, because it is not enough for you to have a promising pilot with one employee. You have to start thinking of so if the pilot is promising, you have to start thinking of adoption. And that is where you invest in building trust amongst your workforce. Because again, sometimes even when the leadership have the buying, some of the employees are scared that, okay, AI is coming to take my job. So you have to build it. Yeah. So you have to build the trust. You have to make the workflow usable. Then you have to really invest in training, because when you design your workflow, sometimes your employees they'll be hesitant to try a new process. So even invest in training, making it stick. That is where the V gains will compound. So after you found the efficiencies, you deploy a fix, then you have to drive toward adoption across your workforce.
So it's basically all about driving up efficiency of the business, the processes. And if you can drive up efficiency, then that definitely affects the bottom line in a positive way. It doesn't look like it from the top, but it's all about the bottom line, right?
Yeah, it is. They're not advocating for human judgment replacement. We don't do that. So for example, one of our customer acquisition strategy is cold outreach. So when we are doing cold outreach, we use generative AI model to do a deep research on the leads to find the right person to contact in those companies. And then we use generative AI to draft personalized email sequence. But now we've also seen firsthand the limit of these generative AI models. And this is why you need judgment. So generative AI models, they have the tendency to make inferences that are sometimes not really grounded. They can rely on stale information, right? And sometimes when there are gaps, they have the tendency to fill gaps when it's not needed. And for a business selling AI services, when you are doing cold outreach, the messaging is important. And so it's left for us to actually check the artifacts produced by the AI, verify facts, then make judgment on what to send and what not to send. If you can If you can fuse your human judgment with the efficacy of using generative AI tools, you can really begin to drive
Win-win.
to the bottom line.
Yeah, that's true. That's a win-win again. Talking about humans in the loop, which you've definitely, again, I'm a big advocate for having a human in the loop.
Yep.
But in recent months and years, there's been not just generative AI, but agentic AI, which tends to generally proceed on its own without human interaction, so it's able to make decisions based on preconceived or predetermined workflows. Do you think agentic AI is at loggerheads to human in the loop? Are they opposing? Are they the same? Are they complementary? If someone said to you, I don't think agentic AI is good because it removes the human in the loop, how would you marry those two thoughts together?
So that's a good question. So I think the evolution of the employee-employer relationship is going to evolve, right? Because those who are able to deploy AI agents, they'll be able to capture more of the value. So my own opinion is that there is no competition between the AI agent and then the intelligence stack. So I call the human behind the agent the intelligence allocator. And so you still need someone to allocate
I like that.
So currently, even with all the AI agentic tools we have, you must have a good grip on not letting those AI agents run wild. You still have to be able to maintain your judgment. So our jobs currently is to actually leverage those AI agents, leverage their capabilities. So that means we are doing evaluation, we are validating their results, and we are doing system design. So my opinion is that at least now, currently, there's no competition. You are fusing human judgment and AI agent capability.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a bit more about the future, particularly getting to a point where we can start to have production grade AI pipelines for the businesses of tomorrow, clean tech, efficient energy, and all of that. How do you think AI can actually help us, in that sphere to be better at bringing these technologies of the future here? So we see how AI technology has improved, that we can actually get better. How can AI even help us even get even better at those things that we do? What do you think?
So again, it goes back to our framework, which is to identify, you find the leak, then you ship the fix, and then you make it stick. So you made mention of the clean tech client. So we had a clean tech client that we built what we called a production grade discovery pipeline for. The client team was effectively doing scouting workflow, but they were doing it manually. So they were checking sources, they were identify relevant startups, they will assess the fit, and then decide whether to pass, to watch, or to reach out to those ideal startups. So we did not treat the workflow as one giant pipeline. We broke it down into stages.
Yeah, true.
What we did was that we curated a list of reputable sources because we didn't want the AI agent pipeline to be inventing sources on the fly. So we fetch content from the source, we clean it up, we extract the relevant companies, you extract the content, you extract the entity, then you prefetch, and then you score the entities. At the scoring stage, you are doing a lot of heavy lifting with the AI models, and you are using API credits. So we filter to avoid irrelevant companies getting to that particular stage, and then we score the remaining ones against the client criteria and framework. So, and I would say that what made this production great was that it wasn't just clever, it was structured. It reflected what I would consider client real workflow. And we also considered cost and then reliability. Basically, for our adoption, again, it's going back to your workflow. You don't have that aspect of our work that is repetitive, where consistency is weak, where the manual work is high effort. So those are areas where we need to really divert generative AI at and see if it's able to extract efficiency from it.
Yeah, and I can see the value of that because again, it's not easy trying to actually curate a list of leads, convert those leads into prospects, and then finally bring them into your funnel and make them a client. And that's why I've always loved that example of a funnel. It's very wide at the top, but very narrow at the bottom. You have this very wide pool. But again, that's the problem. The problem is if you have to manually go through filtering through all of that pool to try and find your potential client, it's a lot of wasted effort. Go on.
Yeah, so the major task that we do beforehand is to curate the reputable sources. So for the clean tech, you have a bunch of climate focused publications. So we just get the RSS feed. So that's a major heavy lifting that we have to do as humans.
Exactly.
Now the remaining steps can be totally automated using generative AI. So the first step is when you prefetch the content from the publication, you can do that with typical Python code, like, and then you can strip out the HTML, the HTML elements. Then you can use generative AI model. When you are extracting entities, you are checking the context around words. For example, like if you are discussing carbon capture startup, around the name, you probably see signals like probably emission reduction, carbon sequestration. So with that, the AI model is able to extract the entity. So you're not doing that yourself again. So then this comment itself is you just sending the list of the startups that you think are relevant and its current framework to the AI model. So it's basically a prompt. Then it returns the relevant startup. So again, that's why human judgment is very important. You have to rely on human judgment when using these AI tools. At least the capabilities of the AI tools that we have today, you still have to like fuse human judgment.
Yeah, that's so true. I look back at the last 5 years, well, maybe 4, since OpenAI launched ChatGPT. I remember then ChatGPT 1 then for public release. Now we're at 5 right now, right? I look at the advancements that we've had in those 3-4 years, and I am amazed. Just looking back to 2020 and looking at today, 26, and the world, not only does it feels different, and it actually is different. There's so much more that generative AI and AI in general, not just generative AI, agentic AI, all of that has actually done for us to bring us to where we are today. And I can only imagine what it's going to look like another 5 years from now. But as somebody who works in the space, I wanted to ask for your thoughts. What do you think? Let's assume a company decides that, okay, we're going to go all out and we're going to embrace AI. We're going to leverage AI to make ourselves more efficient, more effective, better at what we do. What do you think a genuinely AI-enabled organization will look like in, 3-5 years from now?
Yeah. One of my stronger views is that AI will not just improve workflows. Like I said, like before, it also reshape how value is created within like businesses and how it's captured.
Mm-hmm.
So I think AI would it will dramatically increase like the leverage of individuals who are able to have domain expertise and who are able to use the tools effectively. So eventually, like, the AI-enabled businesses of the future, they will have a leaner team. They will have a smaller teams because you'll be able to do so much. Like the experts who are able to allocate those intelligence, they'll be able to work together with those AI agents and they'll be able to accomplish so much. What would typically take a team of 100, for example, to achieve today, with the rapid advancements of generative AI and the analysis that are being built around them, I suspect that like in the future years, you need like a fraction of those 100 people to be able to accomplish the same task. The advice is that everyone needs to get on board now. You need to start using the tool. Absolutely. Like, you need to start using the tools and go beyond the surface level, because most people are still using generative AI tool on the surface level. They are still using the free generative AI models. They need to stop. You need to stop. You need to start using the advanced capable models. Particularly if you are working like for a business where they have some restrictions on how to use AI. Start a business or like start a side hustle and start using generative AI models. Because if you don't get on board, you're going to be left behind.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I do believe that AI is going to make us more efficient and more effective at what we do. And probably we would need less humans to do the same level of work going forward in the future. But then the other side of that coin, and I've had people say this to me, is that then, well, even if AI is not taking our jobs, AI is putting some people out of a job. So how then do we square that? Because if you need 100 people to do task A, and with AI, you only need 20 people, to some people that reads like that is 80 people that don't have a job anymore, right? So how do we square that balance? How can we say, yes, I know it's 80 people that don't have a job, but it's still justifiable?
When I came to Canada, I had some very, survival jobs. I worked in a DHL distribution center, and the type of work that humans were doing, I was irritated that in 2019, how's it possible that this is the way of doing things in 2019, right? Like driving forklift and picking boxes manually and then uploading the boxes, and like it was painful and stressful. Personally, I feel like those type of jobs should have been automated long time ago. And my personal opinion is that there'll be deployment. There's a lot of things that's left to be done. We don't have, for example, we don't have a cure for HIV, right? We don't have a cure for cancer. So, my personal opinion is that there'll be some upskilling. People will find new activities, like new profession, that will pay them handsomely in a new paradigm where we have generative AI doing the job of doing what we have taken like 10 people, 10 people doing in the past. Now you need one person to do it. So those other 9 folks, right? They're going to find some other jobs. Like, that's my opinion anyways. I might be wrong, but yeah, I feel strongly that there's still a lot for us to do. Like, there's a lot for us to do as human race. So, so I'm personally, I'm kind of more optimistic that eventually in the future that folks who are doing all those painful jobs, what I call painful jobs, right?
They are painful.
They find a better option eventually. So that's my opinion.
And I totally agree with you. Every time people have made that argument to me and said, "Oh, it's going to take our jobs. We're putting people out of a job. We are increasing unemployment," I've always said, AI is going to do the low-level tasks. That's going to free up our brains to do the higher-level tasks. That's the first part. The second part is, I say, if history is anything to go by, then that conclusion is a fallacy. Because look at when the Industrial Revolution started. People were like, "Oh, it's going to make us, if machines are the one making the cars, nobody's going to have a job. There's no machine meant to do this." The Industrial Revolution started and it only created more jobs for people. Yep. There was so much more we could do because, again, it opens up new possibilities that you probably didn't think of. Like now with AI, you can, I can do this rather than wasting my time doing the manual, low-level jobs. We can spend more people, looking for a cure for HIV, for cancer, whatever it is, and we can reach that solution quicker. Because we now have more brain power to divert and devote to that, as opposed to the lower level tasks of how am I going to mix the chemicals together to get the right strength to make the pill. We can get an AI or a robot to do all of that for us now. So it can only get better because, again, AI is going to free up our brains and our minds to do the higher level tasks that are the things that really make us better as a human race, I think.
Yeah. So I was just pulling up a tweet from the CEO of Shopify, Toby, and like the tweet is that the most AI-proof job in the world is entrepreneurship. So if you are scared of generative AI taking your job, start a business. So like currently I have this AI consulting business that is helping businesses with implementation. I also have a cleaning business, and what we're able to accomplish with generative AI, it is outstanding. It's like it is mind blowing because in just a month, we actually launched in March. Like our first month was in March. The website design was with generative AI. The onboarding, the hiring, the support, like everything is being done with generative AI. So now, for every application you have, for every side also idea you have, now you have the tools to be able to
leverage AI.
You can't. So again, like Toby said, the most AI-proof job in the world is entrepreneurship. So eventually, I feel like
we're all going to go there.
Exactly. Yeah. So we work on more ambitious, more interesting problems, not pushing boxes in the real and
that's forklifts and boxes. I totally agree. This has been such a very interesting conversation. I've learned a lot as well as also, and I think it's even made me a lot more optimistic for the future as AI becomes a lot more mainstream. But I wanted to ask, for the sake of our audience, if the audience wanted to get a taste of what it is to see what Aivant is up to, what you're doing, where can they find that information?
Yeah, so they can find it on www.aivant.io, and can also be reached on Twitter. My handle is Adurex. That's ADUX Adurex, and I'm also on LinkedIn. LinkedIn Adura Fayode. So
Okay. To make it easy for everyone, what I'm going to do is, if you just look down in the description below, I'm going to put a link to Adura's LinkedIn, his Twitter, as well as a link to the Aivant website as well. So you can go there, check it all out, connect with Adura on LinkedIn so you can see all the good stuff he is doing as well. On behalf of the audience, I want to say thank you so much to Adura for coming on today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've really had a lot of fun doing this. Any final words before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so final words is that, I think we are still early. The models are already capable, but there's a runway for them to even to acquire more capabilities. So the winners over the next few years will be those with access to AI, those who are using the AI beyond surface level, those who are using the most advanced AI models, not just the free tier AI models. So so I really encourage everyone to really just get started. Find the most painful, difficult part of your workflow and automate it with generative, or even if you can't automate it, try. So yeah, that's my encouragement to everyone, that just don't sit on the sideline. Be an active participant. Start using these tools today.
Don't just be a bystander, be actively participating. And I think that's a very good place to leave it. On behalf of the audience, I want to say thank you to Adura for coming on today. It's been such an eye-opening conversation. If you've been listening and you have been afraid of AI taking your job, spoiler alert, it's not going to take your job. It's only going to make your job and your life and your existence better if you leverage the tools that are available there. So go out there and start to leverage those tools to make yourself better, make the world a better place. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with someone who you think is going to enjoy this conversation as well. If you're not yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Why aren't you subscribed yet? Please go ahead, click the subscribe button, and come back and catch us on the next episode. And until next time, this is Femi signing out on the CSM Lounge. I'll see you again.